Welcome to Florida Education News. Today we're at Doral College sitting down with School Board Member Dan Espino of Miami-Dade County Public Schools. We're very grateful for you to be here with us.
Tony, thanks so much for the invitation.
Yeah. So look, there's a lot going on in Miami-Dade County and people are interested in understanding what are some of the biggest challenges that you see Miami-Dade County Public Schools facing. You have the old strategic plan which is coming to an end. You have a new strategic plan. So what is it that's top of mind for you as a board member in Miami-Dade?
When it comes to educational value, the strategic plan is solid. What is needs to be adjusted, needs to be modernized and updated is how we approach our messaging, our communication with the public, and how we leverage our assets. I've said some unpopular things in strategic planning sessions where I don't think that in large part we are responding to the market the way that businesses do. There is a lot more competition which we welcome. I've got 4 boys. They've gone to district managed charters. They've gone through private school. And we are not acting as if every student that walks in the door we're going after. We're still acting as if the attendance boundaries dictate who comes to our school. We are now 100% school choice. You can go to any school within the district, which means like our Belen medical centers, Leon medical centers, all these other medical centers that fight for every life that comes in through that HMO. We have to go and communicate with the public and let them know everything that we're doing. That is a completely different paradigm than the way that we've been marketing previously, which essentially is, these are the boundaries and this is your automatic school comes in. The school choice that's available now means that we have to compete. And to the school district's credit, they have created magnet schools and magnet programs, some open, some closed, that are actively delivering new academic solutions for our students. But that's only as a result of competition. And that competition is healthy in the marketplace, and it's driving a conversation at the board that I don't think has been had for the last at least 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, no, and people are talking about the declining enrollment and then the budget shortfalls. And obviously there's one way to look at that. And some people say it's immigration driven. Some people say it's the vouchers. But regardless, obviously it's not a good situation to be in when you have budget shortfalls. So how do you look at that evolving marketplace? Obviously, public education, traditional public schools have to find a place in the world as it's evolving. So how do you see it finding a place in that new world?
Sure. I mean, let's be honest. It's a lot of things. It's not one thing. If it was one thing, we'd be able to address it easily. There has been declining enrollment over the years. Then that sort of leveled off during COVID, had an immigration spike, and now we have a drastic drop, but we are probably where we would have been if we had a continued decline through COVID and through that, and we wouldn't have had the immigration spike. That's a result of choice. And that's okay. That's like, and I said this the other day too, people think it's funny. I go, that's like having too many chicken restaurants here in Doral, right? That means there's options for people to choose, and we have to develop the best value, the best service, and the best offering. What I think we have to better do is right size our county. Because what's happening is we have school populations that are dwindling in schools that still require an infusion of capital for improvements, an infusion of maintenance dollars, and we're not leveraging our assets correctly, or we can parlay those assets to generate revenue for us that then can be used to improve schools and consolidate where necessary. I'm doing it in Miami Springs. I had a school that was, in the community's eyes, failing. It was a C school, but it had a perennial bad reputation since I was a kid. It hasn't changed. And it would take $50–60 million to improve the school facility, decades to improve the community's perception of that school, and we don't have that kind of time. So I decided, with the support of the administration, to close that school and turn Miami Springs Senior High into a 612, so that now those offerings of a high school with 7 academies in it can be pulled down along with the sports extracurricular activities and create really a school that I think is going to have countywide implication as a model of what you do to right size the county. That process took me 2 years for Miami Springs. We don't have that kind of time to wait. If not, we're going to end up becoming like Broward County, with all due respect, where we're making drastic budgetary decisions that really start to affect communities. So the point is, I think that whether it's in the strategic plan or an overall planning for our assets, we just have to develop strategic solutions, because really we are one county, 9 districts, but we are a myriad of potentially hundreds of communities that are going to be affected. But if we do it correctly and strategically, we'll be delivering better options for our students.
Yeah, and I hear choice showing up in your answers to the questions. And I think that what the state has done is it's really created an environment for leaders like yourself to begin to put the families that are you guys are servicing at the center, and asking, what do the parents and families want? How can we evolve to meet those? So when you think about choice, what are some of the options why do you think these parents are choosing private schools? What is it that that the traditional public school system is not offering that's pulling kids out of that environment?
I think curb appeal and facilities has a lot to do with it. I've got schools in my district that have or are about to turn 100 years old, and they're extremely well maintained, but it's hard to compete with a school that's 5, 10, 15, 20 years old. Especially it's been outfitted with the latest and greatest labs and tech labs and science labs and sporting facilities. I mean, we look at some of the charter schools that we're competing against, and they have those facilities. So what we've done is, by not right-sizing the county over time, we have prevented other facilities that we've got from keeping pace from a facilities perspective. From an education perspective, I think we're on par. Our grades are, as a district, we're the largest urban district with an A rating, which is, I'm very proud of that. But I always say this: we don't send our kids to a district. We send our kids to a school. And so as much as we brand our district and celebrate our district, we really got to deliver results at the school-based level. And so part of the conversation is looking at the map and saying, are we doing what's right with the taxpayers' dollars? Are we delivering the best educational offering? Or are we just maintaining the status quo because we don't want to make hard decisions? And I didn't put myself up for this position to avoid making hard decisions. And some of those decisions are going to make people upset. There are people in Miami Springs that said, I went to that middle school and I wish it wouldn't close. Like, me too. But if we simply don't have enough customers, which are our students, walking in through the door, you have to make a strategic decision for the betterment of the entire community, not just one particular school. I think that certainly, not to get too political, but social issues or perhaps a legacy of some social issues that have now been resolved turned off a lot of parents. Where that simply did not seem to be the case in charter schools, and certainly not in private schools, depending on its persuasion. For the most part, thanks to the leadership of the state, we've been able to use legislation as both sword and shield to address some of these social issues. And I will tell you that while that spiked in my first couple of years in office, over the last couple that have passed, that has dwindled away and things have begun to align. But even still, every once in a while things pop up and they have to be addressed. I think it had something to do with it. So overall, I think there's also a cultural shift that's happening in Miami-Dade County, where whether you're from outside of the state or outside of the country, perhaps where those people are from, really the options are best choice is private school, relegated class is public school. Charter schools look, sound, quack, walk like a private school. I mean, it is what it is, even if they're not paid for like a private school. And so that's creating, I think, a marketing perception issue that we have to dispel. But really, it goes down to one particular thing for me, is I refuse to allow Miami-Dade County public schools to become the relegated class of schools. And if we don't act, that's what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, we're going to end up with a cast of those that can get into private school, those that are fortunate to get into a lottery and get into charter schools, and then everybody else relegated to maybe a school of their last choice. And then that starts to create a bigger divide, which is part of why the country is losing its middle class. And so if we want to make sure that Miami-Dade County and the United States overall continues to have that uplift potential, we got to make sure we have a Miami-Dade County Public Schools that's strong and that competes par for par, pound for pound with charter schools and private schools.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I'm curious what you think specifically on the choice issue. We've seen some districts begin to partner with micro schools, which, even though they don't call it, a private school leasing from a public school, but it's something like that, where they're trying to come up with this model where you might have the district contracting with private providers to educate in those facilities. When you look at the state as a whole, more from a policy perspective, not necessarily just Miami-Dade County, but how do you see public schools and maybe even privates coming up with more innovative approaches to how can we partner? How can the public school make itself relevant in the evolving marketplace with the privates? Is there anything that you see in that?
Sure. I mean, look, my own boys all went through a district-managed charter school. That's what we call it down here, where it's a hybrid, where it's a charter school that contracts back services. I mean, we have a set of core competencies, and whether it's training, education, we have back of house services, and I think that there's not a one-size-fits-all, but developing solutions localized to a community is incredibly important. There are places with a tremendous amount of choice, like Doral, where we are right now, and there's places where charter schools will not go for whatever reason, and I don't want to speculate. And so there's got to be this idea that we're all in it together, instead of the antagonism that has been perceived for years, which is that we cannot lose market share as a school district because that means the charter schools are doing better than us. No, we have to do what's in the best interest of the kids and also make best use of the tax dollars. And that's what Tallahassee, I think, has said through its legislation, which is we are investing in education. Whoever can do the most with this amount of money, we want the money to follow the child and let the parents decide what gives them the best option. And what was amazing to me is that when the family empowerment scholarships were being discussed in Tallahassee, the myriad of people from different walks of life, different political and religious values, all were saying, we want to support this because it just gives parent choice. And what I think we've seen over the last few years, that was COVID resulted in a grand awakening of parents. Parents thought there was something happening in schools. Now that they're looking over and literally seeing what's happening in the computer, now they activate it and say, well, this is not what we had anticipated was happening in schools, and we need to activate. And their voices have been heard from Miami-Dade County Public Schools all the way to Tallahassee, and we have to deliver those solutions. With regards to how you make it happen, it's complicated. Because I will tell you, Miami-Dade County Public Schools doesn't innovate as quickly as I think we should. I also have heard the grapevine, whether you're a developer that wants to develop teacher housing or somebody with an innovative academic solution, sometimes it's hard to penetrate and navigate perhaps an unsolicited proposal process. So I think we have to create an environment to accommodate and to attract that kind of proposal and that kind of engagement, because what's going to end up is going to have a cooling effect on everybody that could potentially bring a new solution to our county.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, traditionally the public school system has been, obviously you want to be focused on the academics, but some of these problems are strategic, they're operational, they're business decisions.
Right.
And, you have all these educators in the public school system. How do you see, we have the school grades in Florida for the education side, but there's really no grade for the operational side.
Right.
So then how do you see that operational side becoming more important and relevant in the next strategic plan or the future?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an educator. I'm a lawyer, and I'm a government lawyer. I've been involved with government for 20 years, and I take a different perspective on it. I look at it, number one, as a parent, I think, number one, and number two, through the lens of government delivering a service, and number three, I'm also a small business owner. And ultimately, education and safety are at the heart of what we do, but how we deliver that is of critical importance. Whether it's police service in municipalities, fire service at county, ultimately there are ways to innovate and enhance what you're offering and make better use of taxpayer dollars. I don't think that the current approach that we have had is making the best use of taxpayer dollars. And that's to say, not because anyone's doing anything wrong or squandering, but simply by not right-sizing the county, we are not allowing our best foot to go forward and uplifting those communities that have solid schools that can gravitate towards. And that's a hard thing to do, because none of us want to dictate to the other districts. I have all the deference in the world to my colleagues. And at the same time, without the support of an administration that's leading that charge or helping us co-lead that charge, it's a difficult conversation to have. Yes, I don't know what our grade would be if operations were part of that metric. I will tell you that we have a significant amount of deferred maintenance in our facilities. We do have situations where air conditioners go down for 3-4 weeks at a time, and you got to go in there and start picking up the phone and calling people and activating. And those are the kinds of things that get out into the ether. I will say that in leveraging our assets, one thing I can ask of Tallahassee, and I do talk to some of my legislative friends, and that is that I understand they are doing their job and essentially creating an environment that forces us to make better use of our taxpayer assets. But at the same time, we also have to be allowed to make better use of taxpayer assets. In Miami Springs, for example, I am talking with the city to essentially lease off half our facilities for a police station. I'm allowing, we'll be allowing AIE Charter School, another district-managed charter school, to lease up a part of those buildings, and then having additional facilities for early childhood education, after-school tutoring, special education. So from an operational perspective, we're shifting our mindset from just being school operators to now being landlords. And as a real estate developer, it's kind of what I do for a living, so it's interesting how these things line up incidentally. But we have to shift our mind focus to say, all right, how do we leverage our assets, not just for making money, but community empowerment, green space development. We have green space that we can't maintain. Cities can't afford to buy park space. Why don't we join together? And I've been trying to do that as well. Fortunately, my district is very incorporated, and I have great relationships with some of these cities, and we are developing those kinds of holistic solutions. Bottom line, it's breaking down silos. Breaking down silos, whether it's within the school district or how we are perceived by the outside world. We need to make sure that we have a lot more community partners at the table, not just delivering what's in the classroom, but how we deliver that service overall.
Well, it's great to see someone thinking through these complex issues, and especially this idea of the district maybe becoming more of a landlord, and how that'll play out. The last question I have is top of mind for everybody is who's going to be the next superintendent of Miami-Dade County?
Sure.
Obviously, a lot of people are grateful for the time that Dr. Jose Dotres has dedicated to the school district and to public education. He's done a great job. I'm not going to ask you who you hope would be the next superintendent. Obviously, there's a lot of other people involved in that decision. But I'll ask you, what do you hope to see in a leader? Because as you explained, the situation is evolving.
Right.
And public education, the destiny of public education is probably going to be decided here in the next 5 to 10 years.
I agree.
So what kind of a leader are you hoping for? What is it that you hope to find in someone who could lead the Miami-Dade County Public Schools?
First, let me say I'd like to echo your sentiments about Dr. Dotres. I appreciate his career in Miami-Dade County Public Schools and all he's done as a superintendent. Also, taking over from the last superintendent was a big paradigm shift, and we appreciate his efforts. I'm on record from last June when his contract was extended, asking the question, I didn't see the merit. What is the merit in having a superintendent leave in the middle of a school year in February of 27? Once we have our strategic plan completed, once we have our budget completed in the middle of a school year, I didn't see the value in that. Not that I don't see the value in Dr. Dotres, just we have to think about this as an organization and the future of that organization that'll be here once he retires. As a policymaker, as one of the leaders on the board, I was at that point a sole voice in saying we really need to bring somebody in, preferably sometime in the summer, with a mandate. And this goes to your second part of your question. That mandate is we need to transform education. Perhaps not necessarily what's happening in the classrooms. Our teachers are top notch, and they're delivering great education for our kids, and the results are there. Whether it's state testing or the school site grades. They are there, but we need to transform education from a facilities perspective, from a marketing perspective, from how we engage other strategic partners in that process, and from a career pathways perspective. Parents want fewer transitions in the school. They also want to be exposed to things. And really, from my perspective, our mission is 3 things: to expose, inspire, and motivate. I want to expose kids to things that they didn't even know existed, that they could somehow be inspired to become in the future, that'll motivate to do the work now. Because I've got 4 boys, and I'll tell you, motivating them to do anything is incredibly important. But it's going to take an inflection point, and that inflection point comes with the selection of a new superintendent. So that superintendent has to come in, get his or her hands dirty, really understand the community, push onto his or her cabinet the fact that we need to develop much more practical solutions, much more business-minded solutions, faster. I don't think that comes if we wait to the middle of a school year, which then will have a sort of not even whether it's a permanent or interim person finishing off that school year to then begin that process next summer. I'm not willing to scuttle a year. I'd rather get to work right now, go through a transition period in the summer, and have that person have to hit the ground running in the 2026-27 school year. So I don't have anybody in mind right now. I am looking forward to seeing what external and internal candidates would raise their hand and say, I want to take up that challenge. I'm willing to pick up that mantle and run with it. But I think it's going to be a challenge. But I think this board is up for it. This board, through going back to the top of the conversation, this conversation has had a discussion on this strategic plan that I had not seen even in our strategic plan update in 2022. This board is aggressive in a positive way. This board wants to be innovative and active. We want to leverage our relationships in Tallahassee, in Miami-Dade County, and beyond actually. And they are willing to stand in front of some of these issues, coalesce a community around positive solutions.
Well, I think everyone wishes you the best of luck. It's not a lot of easy challenges.
We need it. Thank you.
But thank you so much for sitting down with us today, okay?
All right, Tony, thanks so much.
Oh, thank
God bless.
you.